Homeless, and anybody who receives government assistance for their homelessness is going to be required to give up their health information to the government. New executive order just dropped. According to the executive order, about 275,000 people last year spent any given night on the streets, and they claim that the majority of those people are either mentally ill, have substance abuse issues, or both. And I'm not going to quibble over the numbers because that's not what's important. What they want to do, however, is shift them into long-term institutional settings for humane treatment through the use of the civil commitment process. In other words, they want to take homeless people that they allege have mental health or substance abuse issues and bring them to civil court for a determination that they need to be forcibly institutionalized. And they want to do this under some pretty broad terms. For example, people with mental illness who pose risks to themselves. In other words, think about maybe a homeless veteran with suicidal ideations from his PTSD. Or people who pose risks to the public, or are living on the streets and cannot care for themselves. It doesn't give any further explanation of what exactly that means, whether if that person is able to care for themselves or not. The discretionary grant programs are going to be reevaluated to determine whether or not the municipality or locality enforces prohibitions on open illicit drug use. So we'll talk about the safe consumption sites here in just a moment. But number two, enforce prohibitions on urban camping and loitering, and enforce prohibitions on urban squatting. In other words, these municipalities, to receive the homeless assistance funds, have to be willing to go through and essentially clear out the homeless and enforce local rules and laws on homelessness. But more importantly, to receive these funds, the municipality also has to be willing to go along with this whole civil commitment idea for people who are drug addicts or who have mental health issues. The EO also requires that the Attorney General will take all steps necessary to ensure that law enforcement has the funding for encampment removals. They also want to get rid of funding and cease activity for any places that have, safe consumption sites for drug users. But the very last one I want to talk about here is this one. Recipients of homelessness assistance funding either have to be permitted or required to collect health-related information about the participants of the program, and they have to be willing to provide that material to law enforcement. They want to forcibly institutionalize the homeless, and anybody who receives government assistance for their homelessness is going to be required to give up their health information to the government.